Welcome to another episode of Behind the Bar podcast, brought to you by the coaches and clients of RT Fitness Durham, Sunderland, and of course the Barbell Club and the Barbell Club Online, where we take you from complete beginner to photo shoot ready. So on today's podcast, we have our coach, Dan Burkett. So Dan works in our Durham facility. He's only been with us like 3 months. He is known as the Biomechanics coach on Instagram. If you want to give him a follow, the link will be in the description below. So Dan just talks his journey in being a coach, why he's a coach, who he likes to help. He is so knowledgeable in all areas of training, and the intricacies in which he can, what his learnings has been is unreal, but what I've seen, how he can relate to that to the everyday person is just phenomenal. And he's super great guy, super good coach, and yeah, just listen to everything what he's got to say, get some takeaways in there from him as well. So yeah, enjoy the show. Links are below. If you want to work with Dan on a one-to-one basis as well, just drop him a message on Instagram and he can coach you in the Durham area as well. So yeah, enjoy. Right then, are we ready?
I think so.
Yes, so Dan, who is Dan Burkett? Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah. I know there's a few ways to spell it, but yeah. That is a good question to start off with. I think the easiest way to look at it is I'm just somebody that started off in the fitness industry that absolutely no idea, suffered with information overload, could not decipher between what's right, what's wrong. And I've just spent the last 8 years just trying to carve my own path, finding the right information.
8 years?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So like I went down a route initially of an apprenticeship, and don't get me wrong, it was good at the time. You think you learn loads of information, and the longer and longer I was in the fitness industry, the more and more I realized that information was just outdated. A lot of it just wasn't scientifically backed up anymore. It was principles that had been disregarded for years and years and years, but they were still in academia. And I was sat there wondering why. Right. And the longer and longer I was in it, I realized how expensive and how time consuming it is to produce new textbooks and all this sort of stuff. So I looked initially at going down the routes of university, but then the more and more I looked into the fitness industry and the more I saw how many resources were open to me, again, I was looking at it going, a lot of stuff at university isn't correct. And it's universally accepted that it is because it comes with a degree, but you look at it and go, does literature back it up? And a lot of the stuff at the moment is no. So I've just spent, I would probably say at this point now, the last 3 years, just focusing on, I guess, self-education is the way to look at it. Like, I'm not somebody, don't get me wrong, that will sit there and read a study, but I will probably consume an hour to an hour and a half of education a day, right, just off of whether it is biomechanics, whether it is physiology, whether it is just, again, like going over basic movement patterns, just stuff that keeps me ticking. Because I'm a proper nerd for that kind of stuff, and I don't know why. It's the thing that I latched onto, and I don't know why I find it so interesting. But if I scroll past something on Instagram and I like the look of that, my first thought isn't, I'll save it and look later. It's, I'll drop what I'm doing now and I want to look into that. Because I always want to know why. So I'm one of those people that when somebody says something, my first question is why. It's always why. And if somebody can't back up the why, then my head goes, right, I'm going to look it up. Because I just need to know. And I don't know why it is, but I just need to know.
Shit, you haven't asked me why yet on some of the programming and stuff. Oh, bollocks. You might have to ask us a few of them then. I was going to say, so why the biomechanics coach?
Yeah, so that all started off, so I went back to college. I went under a career change. So during COVID, it was really, really hard to get back into the fitness industry. You know, gyms just weren't open. And the ones that I was applying to, because at that time I'd moved to Edinburgh, nobody was hiring. So I had to take a complete career path, went into like retail auditing, which is a whole thing in and of itself. Probably the most mind-numbing job I've ever done. But the only way that I could see of getting out of it was going back into education. So I was like, right, I'm just going to go back to college. I think it's the equivalent of what is a level 8, so it's just under a degree. Did like a Scottish High Diploma. And it was good. It was interesting. And there was... It was in health, exercise and fitness. Okay. And there was actually a module in that was biomechanics. Uh-huh. But a lot of the biomechanics stuff was like to do with running and cycling and rowing. And I looked at it and was like, this doesn't apply to what I train in.
Yeah.
And I conveniently came across something called the Muscle Mentors. It sounds really gimmicky,
Yeah.
but it was basically these 4 guys that ran like an education portal, and they would just upload seminars on a weekly basis. And it was annoying because I found it, and about 3 weeks later they closed the site because all 4 of them went off on their own different route.
Right, okay.
But 2 of them were very, very specific in that their thing was biomechanics. And they set up their own company called the PT Project, which I now think partners with Pure Gym. So all the Pure Gym personal trainers also get funneled through that as well, which is pretty good. But I did their first 2 intakes of that. So I got to see a lot of the biomechanics stuff behind it. And all it is really is it's just learning how do forces apply to anatomy. That's all you're learning. So it's why does this exercise feel hard in this particular part of the movement, and why does it feel easy in that part? But then the more and more I got into it, I was like, I really like this. And I then became like a real nerd for machines in the gym and stuff like that. You'd be like, oh, but this machine's heavier at the bottom and this one's heavier at the top, and now I want to find out why. And then you start to find out what machines feel good for you. And then all of a sudden, it then just opened up this massive world into physiology as well. And I was like, bearing in mind, I'm somebody, across the various courses I've done, I've studied anatomy and physiology 5 times to the point where I'm bored of it.
Yeah.
But doing that course and the amount of work or research that I do in physiology, I realized how limited they are in scope and how much more information there is out there to learn. And it just came from there, because then I started implementing a lot of that stuff with my PT clients, and I saw how much of a difference it made. Again, like for somebody, why does an exercise feel absolutely trash, but why does another one feel great? And you can then confidently turn around to them and say, well, actually, the reason it might feel that way is because this muscle is weak in this position, so I want to pick an exercise that's light in that position. And this muscle is strong in that position, so I want to pick a movement that's strong in that position. Then all of a sudden, people would sit there and go, this is a thing. I'm like, it is a thing. It's just something that I'm not going to say it's like gate kept, because it's not, but you need to be willing to learn it. Because if you're not willing to learn it, you can't pick it up in 5 minutes. It is a whole, I mean, for my 2 modules, it took me like 16 weeks to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
While doing a college course, while working 6 days a week. But I wanted to do it. And I think that's the big thing, is I was genuinely interested. For the first time in my life, I looked forward to studying, which is something that throughout primary school and secondary school I hated. So like for me, I look at it and go, it caught my interest. Still don't really know why, but I will still go back and look over all the documents that I've got from it every now and then. So that's where the biomechanics coach came from. So exercise mechanics, for some reason, is just my thing, and I don't know why, but I love it.
Wow. I suppose. So how do you feel as well? Like, I think from that, with personal trainers, coaches today, because that is basically the intricacies of the intricacies.
Yeah, it is,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very niche.
Yeah, and say the average Joe, they only want to lose weight.
I think the best way of looking at that is they don't need to know the information that I know, because I program it in a way that that's all taken care of, and they never even need to know that information. But all I need to know is that, right, on paper, does what I've written down, does that make sense? Does it actually work for somebody? Like, what kills me is I'll go into a gym and I'll see somebody flat bench and then flat dumbbell press and then flat chest press on a machine. And I sit there and go, you have picked 3 exercises that all do an identical thing. Mm-hmm. They're all hard and easy in the exact same position. You've not wasted time per se, but you could have picked 2 other things that do 2 different things as well. And as I say, like, clients don't need to know what I know. They just need to know that what I'm doing works. And I know it works because I've got all the background in that. And I think that's the way to look at it, is like, you don't need to know what's going on up there. You just need to have trust in it. But
all of this is a pretty fucking good backup.
Yeah.
For if anybody ever like says, what am I doing this for?
Do you know, and I had a really good conversation with Matty the other day, because I trained with him. Mm-hmm. And I think there is power in saying, I don't know. Yeah. Like, you can't know everything. I find there's a lot of coaches that will just say something to shut a client up, even if they know it's kind of wrong or they're guessing at it. And I'll always look at it and go, if I really don't know, I will go away and find out for you. And I'll come back in due course with a good enough answer. But I think there's something really good in having a client say something. They go, oh, I've been struggling this for years. And you can just go, oh, it's because of that. And then they try it and it just works.
I was just going to say, when was the last time you actually had to say, no, I don't know that?
It's probably been a good few weeks, but I'm not somebody that will turn around and go, oh, that's been years, because it hasn't. Like, I will have people turn around, and I think because you're a PT, they also assume you've got like physiotherapy knowledge. I'll have somebody turn around and go, I've got a pain in my elbow, what is it? And I sit there and go, I have not got x-ray vision. I have genuinely no idea. I was like, well, what's causing it? How long has it been there? What is the pain that you're suffering from? So when it's like injury related, I'll often turn around to people and go, find a physio, because they're going to know far more than I would. But I would generally say, not to say like nutrition is my weakest quality out of all the things that I look at, because it's not weak. It's just not quite up to the same standards as my mechanics and physiology work. But when I have somebody say like, oh, well, this food is giving me an upset stomach, what do you think it could be? I do sit there and go, I don't know. Because when you look at things like the gut microbiome, there's such little information on it that I don't know. There's so many chemical processes that could be going on that I'd be lying if I said I knew. And I can't do that. I'm not one of those people that can just spout out an answer and hope it shuts somebody up. I'll genuinely turn around and go see a nutritionist, see a dietitian, get a blood test. Like, just, you can't rely on the trainer as a full encyclopedia, but they should have a good reference of what it could be.
Yeah. But we always, like, I think the same even in the exercise world, with the nutrition as coaches, we should only ever be going base level.
100%. And you're told as well on a lot of courses that when you qualify from like being a level 2 or a level 3 PT, you're not a nutritionist. You can guide people on a meal plan, but you can't actually tell them what to do. And I do find it a little bit backwards, because you spend such a high amount of your time learning about nutrition just to be told, oh, by the way, you can't actually coach this bit. But I do get it, because then if you go for your level 4 and you go for the nutrition, you've got a good foundation. So I do understand it. But yeah, there's limits to each coach. And I think you each have your skill set and the things that you're really good with. And then everything else, you should just have a competent enough knowledge base that if somebody asks a question, you've got a rough idea. Because we can't all be geniuses in every single department.
Oh, not at all.
It's just not possible. You'd spend your whole life researching and you'd never actually get anything done.
I think I'm a good all-rounder.
But so I know a lot of coaches that are really, really good, everything information-based, but the thing they're lacking with is the actual coaching bit. They're not actually any good within a session. And I look at it and go, you need that fine line between the two. Like, you actually need to be able to coach somebody well. It's all well and good having all the theory, but if none of it can be put into practice, what good is it?
And imagine if they didn't have a personality.
They've
got no chance. Because some people can have absolutely all the knowledge in the world, the most credible things. And if they can't actually talk to another human,
sometimes it's painful to watch, because you sit there and you're looking at the potential, you're looking at the what it could be, but there's just that little piece missing to push them over the boundary. And it's why I say it all the time, like, in a coaching format, I am so unbelievably comfortable being there, and I don't care what gym I go to. You see me outside the gym and I'm not the same person. I'm very reserved, I'm very quiet, but I'm like that as a coach because I'm confident in what I do, because I know it works, because I've done it for 8 years. Whereas you put me in any other scenario, I'll crumble, because I'm just not, I'm not that person that can just hop in between industries. I've worked different jobs and I always come back to fitness because I know I'm good at it and I know I enjoy it. And I think that's part of it. Is, as a coach, you have to like what you do. If you're a coach that doesn't like coaching, then it shows in sessions, it shows in clients, it shows in lack of results. And yeah, you got to question then, is it just convenience that you're there for? Is it just because you got a piece of paper that said you've qualified? And I think that's where a lot of coaches can sometimes fall short, is just, if you really love it, it shows.
It does. Yeah, the people who are passionate about it, and even amongst our coaches, like even for me, like when I'm eating, I'll have something on YouTube, and it's something to do with coaching. It might just be a James Smith video or even a Mike Thurston video. Do you know what I mean?
But it's something. It's
something to do with it, and like I'll just sit and watch it even now to this day, which is mad. And I know you will do it, and other coaches who we have, those are the ones who are like constantly, because it's not benefiting them anymore of, say, the clients who we've got, because it's always like normal everyday people just need the baseline stuff, and it's when you're going into super super fucking biomechanics, do you know what I mean? I don't even know the words. But it's like they don't even need to know that, but you're still that intrigued by it all and constantly watching it, which is what makes a great coach.
Yeah. You've got to be always learning and investing. And I think there was a big thing not too long ago within like the online coaching world where a lot of people started to come out with this whole mindset of if your coach isn't always investing in a new course, they're not the coach for you, because it shows they're not willing to learn. But I think as long as you're, bringing in some kind of education, it doesn't matter if it's a book, it doesn't matter if it's YouTube, a podcast, just as long as there's something coming in. Because I've seen the price at a lot of these online courses and they're extortionate. I mean, again, like for each one of the modules that I paid for Biomechanics, it was £500 for an 8-week course. And you look at that and go, I can't afford to do that every couple of months because it is a lot of money. I've got college fees to pay off as well. So I can't go back to uni because I've got to get those off first. And you look at it and you go, it is expensive. And you know that. But as long as you're getting something in on a near enough day-to-day basis and you're showing a willingness to learn, it means that next client that comes through the door, you've probably got something for them.
But there's that good of information now on YouTube and podcasts.
Oh, it's so accessible. Like it's ridiculously easy to get.
I think I was saying, was it yesterday? I think I was saying to you yesterday about like how when I was starting out, YouTube was very, very new.
Yes, you're absorbing everything.
I was learning from that, and podcasts were new, so I was absorbing from that, and I was getting more out of that than my PT course. Yeah. 100% from my
And I can almost guarantee that the PT course that I did was probably the exact same information as what you did.
Probably.
Even bearing in mind, you're looking at 10 years later, it's just the same stuff that's just pushed through on a cycle. And it's why I do sit there and go, look, there are undoubtedly bits of information that people just don't need to know. I mean, the sort of like Instagram world that I look at, there's been a whole big thing the last 2 or 3 weeks about how to best train your forearms. And you've got to look at it and go, look, does anyone actually care? Does that actually relate to the people in front of you?
Yeah.
And then there are other things where you look at it and go, right, well, actually, if it's a topic such as fat loss, how many people go into the gym with that mindset? I mean, I'm guessing nearly every single new person to the gym is coming in for that reason, or near enough all of them. Mm-hmm. So you look at it and go, right, that's something that actually matters. I'm going to look at that. But yeah, like where does the forearm have its best leverage? I look at it and go, I love physiology, but even I don't care about that because I'm not training forearms.
Yeah.
No one's training forearms.
Yeah.
So you've got to sit there.
Once trained forearms.
Yeah, you've got to sit there sometimes and you take information with a pinch of salt, but you also look at it and go, who needs this?
Yeah.
Is it worth bickering over? And usually the answer is no.
But usually people are.
Yeah, people will find anything and everything to argue over, whether it's research backed or whether it's anecdotal. Somebody will have an argument for something. And sometimes you just have to shake your head and smile and just go, yeah, fine. It's like, crack on.
Oh, what would you disagree with me on things?
I don't know if there is anything that I disagree with you on. I mean it from like the standpoint of like, a big one at the moment is in the fitness industry. Should you train your abs?
Yeah. Okay.
Because everyone goes, well,
we'll use that one.
Yeah, like I think that most people should probably train their abs because yes, you do get carryover from certain exercises, great, but do the abs actually go through their contractile range? Do they actually crunch? On a squat? No. On a deadlift? No. On a row? No. On a bench press? No. So if it's not doing that, would it not be a good idea to even just add in 2 sets of crunches a week? And I can't understand the logic of people saying no, because I think they look at it and go, think of all the secondary volume across the week.
Yeah.
And you look at it and go, but it receives 0 direct work. It received nothing. And if you wanted to bring up your chest, you would pick an exercise that directly targets your chest. Mm-hmm. So surely the same has to apply for, I'll actually go back to it, your forearms, your calves, your abs. These quote unquote smaller muscle groups, you can't just leave them behind and then worry in 3 years' time that they haven't grown. Because did you actually work them directly?
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, the answer is no. They're just told years and years gone by, you don't need to do it. Mm-hmm. And then they sit there and go, oh, well, it's small. And it's like, well, that's probably why.
So I would say in the last 2 years, we've reintroduced abs back into the cycle. So I was in that mindset, 100% of like, well, you're hitting your squats and deads and even in chin-ups, like you can feel like the tear. But when you've said that, the crunching motion itself, it's like Actually, they're not going through that plane of motion, are they?
No. It's like removing bicep curls, and instead of doing a bicep curl, just holding like an isometric.
Which you're not allowed to do, by the way.
You're not allowed, and you never would, because that's blasphemous. But it would be like just holding, a bicep curl at 90 degrees and saying, well, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's contracted, it's holding that position, but it's not actually going through a contractile range. So how could that ever be better than just doing the range of motion? And I think once you then start to, it's almost like reframing it. Once you then start to put it across to people that way, you then see the cogs ticking, and they'll be like, oh, okay, that actually does make sense. But as I say, you do it for every other muscle group.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the abs are different for most people, just because there's this assumption that they're always switched on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I would then use that argument, well, your glutes are always switched on. Every time you do a squat pattern or a deadlift, your glutes are always switched on, but you'll still go and work them.
But this is one of the things. So most people say you're new to the fitness game or want to get into the fitness game, and everything else. Like, I'm talking just general pop, whatever, wanting to do it, and then we've got the coaches say. So the coaches want to do the abs the least, yeah. But all these people think that they need to do abs the most.
And do you know what? Those people that want to do abs the most, they also enjoy training abs.
Yeah,
that's what I found is,
even though I suppose they think that. It's going to target that area.
Oh, they do, yeah.
Because that's their mind shift of that's what they want to do.
Oh, and they still believe that fat turns into muscle and all this kind of stuff, and their head goes, train abs, get abs.
Yeah.
The reality is they're already there. You just need to remove body fat and again gradually build up that amount of tissue that's there. But I think there is a big thing definitely where some coaches will not want to take their clients through certain things, but it's understanding that the clients want that.
Yeah.
And if they want that, in certain circumstances, the customer is always right. Again, the full quote is in matters of taste. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's a matter of taste. So they're right. They're paying for it. So I look at it and go, give them the abs.
Yeah.
If they really want it and you don't want to take it through the session, just say to them, can you hit 3 sets of crunches when you get home?
Yeah.
Just anything. Because that's the one thing about abs that I think is unique, is it's so accessible to do anywhere you go. So it doesn't have to directly be in that session. You could do it upon wake, you could do it before you go to bed, you could do it on your lunch break, you could do it anytime you want. But I know for a fact that every leg day cycle we've ran through so far, they're like having abs in there.
Yeah.
They all enjoy it.
And that leg cycle, what they don't actually say, so generally the way our programming works, it's constantly organically changing throughout the years.
Yeah.
And when we did put the abs in, they were like, about the leg part specifically, like, this is absolutely rock solid. And in my head it was like, that abs used to be more legs.
Yeah.
Like, we've taken out, instead of say 4 or 5, so instead of 6 leg exercises, it's only 5 now.
Yeah.
But they think they're getting worse DOMs because of that. But is it because they're less tired and they can push through more then?
I think what a lot of it comes down to is when you look at a lot of like the fatigue data, the less you do, the more you can recover from, and then the harder you can push.
Yeah.
And that's the way to look at it is, if they were doing 4 sets of 6 different exercises, that's 24 sets of legs to recover from. Yeah. Whereas now you take 4 sets away, it's 20, they repeat that same workout in 5 days' time, they're just that little bit fresher towards it. There's not the same sort of like mental fatigue as well, knowing you've got 6 leg exercises to do, split across like 3 or 4 different muscle groups. Their head's looking at it going, well, actually, it's 2 quad exercises, a hamstring, a glute, and then some abs. And their head can break the session up a little bit better, and it, on paper, seems better for them, even though they push harder. And then they start progressing more. And then the DOMs get worse because of those things, which is completely understandable. But I think that's why having abs in a session like that, firstly, I think it makes the most sense out of all of the sessions to put it in a leg day anyway, but it's something that's quite nice to just finish on. Yeah. The amount of people that, they have such a dislike towards abs at the start, they'll happily put it at the end. And I'm like, well, great, if you enjoy it more at the end and you're going to push harder because you enjoy it, go for it.
I think if I had the choice now, because my legs have never been great, especially my calves.
Same here.
But I think if I was to do like a legs, say a day, I'd probably want to start on abs and calves and then do the rest.
The way to look at it is whatever your weak point is, that really is what should sit at the start of the session. Because again, you look at it from like a data perspective, you can only access those largest type 2 muscle fibers when you are most fresh. So if you're leaving what you'd consider a priority body part until the end of the session where you're pretty knackered anyway, how much stimulation are you actually getting from those sets? Not to say it's junk volume, but how much good quality work is going in there. Whereas if you can then shift those muscle groups that you want to prioritize, if you can put them at the start where you've got the most amount of energy available to you, that's where you're going to get the most growth. And the way that you can also look at it is, can you also use those exercises as priming exercises for your bigger lifts? So like a great example is, could you do a leg curl and a leg extension before a squat?
Yeah.
Could you get some blood in the hamstrings, blood in the quads, loads of blood in the knees, and then you go into a squat and you feel warm and ready? Whereas some people will walk straight into the gym, half-arse a warm-up, get straight underneath the squat rack, and they'll wonder why their squats felt awful that day. And you look at it and go, because you did like a 3-minute warm-up, you're not actually ready, you progress to your top set after about 2 warm-up sets. It's like, no wonder it felt terrible. Whereas you take the time to actually ease your way into the session, and it's not to say that your squat will build more muscle than a leg extension or the other way around, because they're both just quad movements at the end of the day. But you look at it and go, is it going to benefit me to do one ahead of the other in terms of prepping me for the next one? And the answer is possibly. Because I've got it on both ends of the spectrum. I have to do a leg extension before a hack squat. I can't do a leg extension before a pendulum squat. If I do that leg extension before the pendulum squat, my sets, they just fall off a cliff so quickly. But I can't get on the hack squat before a leg extension, because then I don't feel prepped and ready to go. And a lot of it is mental just as much as it is physical.
Do you feel as though that little pattern now is like sort of it won't happen unless I do that?
Oh, it's well grooved in.
Yeah.
It's almost one of those now where it's become, I guess, like a ritual.
Yeah.
You now think, like, again, like if that one leg extension specifically that I use is out of use, my head's going, that's the session done with. But it's then trying to understand that you're like, at the end of the day, you're like, it is just a leg extension. It's like my gym has 4 of them. It doesn't matter. I can just pick a different one that day. But it's trying to get over those mental barriers, because I think what a lot of people forget about training is it is also mental. You think about how your brain connects to your central nervous system and how your central nervous system connects to your musculature. If your headspace is off on that session, you will genuinely access less muscle fibers and motor units than you would if you were on the ball. It's why self-talk works. It's why good music works. It's why, as cringy as it is, having a hype man there between sets, like really pushing you on, it's why it works.
Yeah.
Because your head, it uses something called perception of effort. And if it can see a task as being less difficult than it was last week, then obviously you're going to find it easier, even if it's the same load on the bar, and even if theoretically you've not got stronger, if you can perceive it as being easier, you'll just go for it.
Yeah.
Whereas how many times have you put weight on a bar, looked at it and you thought, I don't know if I can move that. So I don't know if that's going to move today. And chances are, especially when you've got a new client that isn't able to get out of that way of thinking, they will get under it and the set will crumble. And it's why one big thing that I'll do, especially if I can see there's one person that's particularly struggling, I will stick with them a little bit more in a session, and it is just positive reinforcement. And it's saying to them like, look, I know it's an 8 to 12 set, but at the very least get your 8. It doesn't always have to be 12. Get your 8, and then anything's a bonus. And if you do your first one and you hit 12, try and hit 12 on the next one. And it's, once people start to build that confidence in, they then almost don't need you to say it, because they know that belief system is there already. And they're now going, I did it last week. I should in theory be better this week than I was last week. So why can't I do it again?
But then those people who did hit it last week and then they've had a shitty day and they come in and then
That's
they didn't hit the weights. And they're like, but I hit it last week.
Yeah. But then I find with those people, you know, it's like, did you have a stressful day at work? Have you actually come into the session well fed? I mean, I'm going to say it. I'd say about 80% of the clients come into my sessions really poorly underhydrated. And you look at it and go, these things matter. Like, I'm not saying that you need a timer for water or something, or that your meals need to be strictly at 8, 12, 3. But it's like, get some food in, because the amount of times somebody comes up to me and says, I've only had a protein shake and a protein bar today. And you sit there.
Is these your afternoon?
Yeah. And you sit there and you go, well, no wonder you don't feel good. It's like, it doesn't need to be the best made meal out there. I don't care if it's as simple as chicken and potatoes, just eat something. Get some form of energy preloaded into your system so that when you train, you've got something to work with, rather than coming in, looking drained, feeling stressed, and then trying to go for like a 5 rep max on a hex deadlift. Because it's like, it's probably not going to go well. So I think sometimes as well is it's being realistic with your expectations, knowing what you've had earlier on in that day, but then also not using it as an excuse. Because I can say outright, the other day, I did my Christmas shopping in Edinburgh in the morning. I drove back. I didn't want to train. I did. And even though I was underfed and underhydrated, I still hit PBs. So it is possible. And I'm not saying everyone's like me on that, but it is a little bit mind over matter. Like if you go in with a negative mindset, the session will follow that.
I think one time he hasn't been a client since you've been here, Johnny Parrish. Basically, he's a freak of nature. Best genetics ever. One of without results.
There's always some.
Yeah, and him, I remember him when he had his stag do. He came to the gym the day after, still pissed.
Jesus.
Okay, he was still out of it, and he hit a PB on deadlifts. I might be completely wrong, and this was straight bar deadlifts at the time, so this was many years ago with us. And I'm sure he got 5x5 on 200, right?
He's a strong boy.
and he's like my weight.
Yeah.
And I remember the next day he came in the gym after that, and he was good. I couldn't even remember being here. And he hit PBs that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost just living off a high off the weekend, I guess.
Yeah, so it can be done. Oh shit, I nearly went cramp there. I think you pretty much answered loads of my questions there. I was going, why you...
I can talk for hours on these things. I mean, you know what I'm like in the sessions.
What gives you the biggest kicks when you're coaching people?
Is in like what feels like most rewarding?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I would probably say it's somebody hitting a weight that they never thought they'd be able to get to on their own. And I think a really great example, and you put a reel out about her the other day, is Yasmin.
Yeah.
She wanted that 55 kilo bench, and she'd been talking about it for about 7 or 8 weeks. And I just said to her, well, just do it. Just put it on the bar and go for it. And I said to her, right,
Which is fucking huge, isn't it?
Yeah. And I looked at it and said, right, well, look, set your feet in the right position, get your breathing on point, get your bracing on the bench, and just go for it. And it's reaffirming to people that in the worst case scenario, I just drop it back to what was on there before. Like, it's not actually that big of a deal if you don't get it. But when you do get it, celebrate those wins.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, Yasmin, or two great examples is Jed and Laura that actually started as clients at the same time that I started as a coach. Yeah. Jed has gone from a 30 kilo to an 85 kilo barbell back squat, which for him is nuts considering he's 6'3", 6'4", and his depth is spot on. It's calf to hamstring. And I think Laura, one of her biggest ones is she went from not even being able to hit... I was going to say, she went from... not even being able to hit 5 reps on an empty bar for bench press to doing 32.5, which I know for a lot of people doesn't sound like an awful lot, but you've got to look at it in the context of somebody that's 5'1", weighs about 50 kilos, has never been to the gym before. Like those wins, they are entirely related to that person and their background in terms of training. And they've already been training for less than 3 months. Your perception of bench presses being skewed there. In what way? Because you've just said there, it might not sound a lot 32.5, right? Yeah, I guess, yeah. I'm going to blow our own trumpet here because of now your perception of what the ladies are lifting in our gym. True. Okay? Because anybody else who goes to a commercial gym or anything else, if a lady has 5 and 1.25 on the end of a bar, that's strong. Yeah. I think that's the thing is we've just got groups of people that try and Emily they are strong. And Nick straight away. Yeah. You got them, and what's Nick doing for 550-ish? I think it's 52.5. Yeah. So, and then obviously Sarah as well. I think she finished on 67.5. Yeah. So yeah. I think your perception, because it's skewing a little bit. Yeah. And obviously Laura probably is your smallest bench. Well, maybe it's not. She might have overtook some people. Yeah, I think she has. Yeah, so it's I think that perception because, fuck it, let's blow our own trumpets. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, actually, what do you, now that I've said that as well? It puts it in perspective where people start and where they end up in such a short period of time. Yeah. Because I think it goes two ways. I think there's a group of people that they almost what's the word? They resonate with that small, dainty type mentality where they think, I can't do it, I can't put any more in the bar, that's enough, that will do me for today. But then you also end up with people on the other end of the spectrum that are those people that just go, oh, another 1.25, another 1.25. And you kind of get like lost in that ground of when you do get those people, because they're always putting something extra on the bar, your head then associates that to everyone and thinking that everyone can do that.
Yeah.
But it's then realising, right, those people might have been training for 5 years, so they can do that. You know, they've cycled in and out of these movements all the time, that once the skill set is back in, they can just put another 1.25 on and it looks the same as the set before it. But then it's understanding that somebody that's been here for 10 weeks, they're still learning the skill, they're still learning the coordination, they're still learning the movement pattern. Even though they've done it, you know, once to twice a week, every week for 10 weeks, it doesn't mean that it's nailed on still.
Only a few minutes of their day.
Exactly.
It's not like...
Like you think in the way that session is structured, they might only be bench pressing for about 10 minutes. And it's 10 minutes every 5 days. And it's 10 minutes every 5 days for 10 weeks. Which in reality, I don't know, probably adds up to maybe 2.5, 3 hours of bench pressing in a 10-week period. It's not actually that much in the grand scheme of things. Whereas there are people that will obviously go to the gym and their whole session is bench press. And they're probably doing more bench press in one session than somebody's doing in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's going, well, of course the difference between those two people is going to be very different, but it's understanding that they've still made really good progress considering where they started from and where they are now.
I like to see how, especially women, when we coach women and how excited they get about, like where you said Yasmin there, it's like they get excited about those numbers because I think most women, I hope I don't get shot for this, but most of them want fat loss. Do you know what I mean?
I generally agree.
Yeah, so it's like most of them want that, but then when they get into weightlifting and where they can physically see the numbers on the board, like in when you coach them in the gym, and for them how excited they get about boom, and like 55 kilos.
But you know what, I think sometimes as well, that's also part of it is, you know, fat loss, sure, it's the goal, it's the end goal, but you need stuff in between that I think needs to somewhat stray away from fat loss so that, let's say the scale weight does go up 1 week, that you're not overly fixated on it. And having performance-based goals is understanding that, all right, if you want to progress on these lifts and you're training in close proximity to failure, you will be developing muscle. And your body will change and it will start to look different, and then it will aid that fat loss process later on. Whereas I think a lot of people go in with just the idea of fat loss. You see it all the time. People get to that position and then they rebound back to where they were and sometimes further. Whereas you look at it and go, you build that foundation first and it makes that secondary process so much easier both to get off and maintain after that.
Do you think people should get lean first?
I think, to be honest, it's entirely dependent, and I think a lot of the time it's what can you commit to time-wise, what have you got available to you, but also what position are you actually in at a start point. If you're somebody that is in like that skinny fat category, then I do look at it and go, well, if I get you any skinnier, then you'll just go from skinny fat to skinny. So what good does that do? Because now you're going to get to what you think is your ideal physique, and then you're going to sit there and go, well, I'm stick thin. Now I need something to go on top. So I think if somebody's coming in and they are genuinely overweight to obese, I think spend a little bit of time learning what you're actually comfortable and capable of doing. See what happens when you're not even prioritizing fat loss. See how your body responds, and then you could drop into a fat loss period. But I think most people that come in with that skinny fat sort of physique first, I look at it and go, just spend time gaining a little bit of muscle. See how your physique changes, and then it might be really easy to then get yourself lean. And then once you're there, you might actually just be happy with that physique because you've now also got a foundation with it. So I think it is just really person dependent.
Go deeper on that. I'm not going to. I
think that's the thing. You could go like on all of these topics.
I'll read this out. Hopefully it makes sense. Being a coach here in like our Durham unit, how's the clients and the characters and like the
awesome.
coaching style of things? Like how's it all been? Because how long have you been with us now?
It will be just shy of 3 months.
Right.
Do you know what? And it was my biggest fear with it was moving from 1-to-1 sessions to 6-to-1 sessions.
Yeah.
Because you always go in with that mindset of, what if some of the clients don't resonate with me, in the sense of what if they just do not like my style of coaching? What if my coaching didn't live up to whoever the previous coach was? Or what if they've got like a specific standard and I just can't hit that? But they're all sound. Like they're genuinely, they're all sound. Like, the way to look at it is they come in and they just want to train. Like, yes, they also want to still have a bit of a laugh and they want to chat and they want to socialize, but they're also just here to train. And to be quite honest, like, not had anyone that's given me any issue. They just get on with it. And I think because with some of them, like, I think Jed and Laura, I think every single client has been on the program longer than I've been a coach on the program. So having them all acclimatized to it made my life a lot easier, because it's not like they're coming up to me going, well, what does this mean? And I'm sat there going, I'm new, I don't know. They almost knew more than I did coming into it. So
they could run the sessions themselves.
Like, don't get me wrong, some of them, if you let them do it, they'd take liberties and they'd start taking progressions that they're just not ready for. But it made it so much easier because they know exactly what was happening. They know the process. They knew that, let's say in 4 weeks' time, it was going to change again. They've got a rough idea of what they've done in the past as well. So they know where they could push themselves to and what is potentially in the pipeline as well. So yeah, from that perspective, like, it is just good crack training with them. Like, they're all funny people. And like, I will have to give a shout out to people like Paul, because he's just hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever come across somebody that within the space of 5 minutes can complain about how weak they are to then turning around and saying that, you know, he's got too much muscle on him and he needs to slow down. And it just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
But it's intriguing as well, because obviously up until a couple of weeks ago, I also had Joe as well as you and Sarah on the 9 o'clock session. And I think a lot of people would come in petrified that you're training your bosses. And then you realise, you're like, it's the easiest session of the week. Like, it's the easiest one possible, because everyone knows what they're doing. They're all in a coach's mindset as well. So if I've got 6 people I need to pay attention to and I can't, I know that even you can just jump in and help somebody with something. Yeah. And I'm like, how anyone could be scared of taking that session is beyond me, because it runs itself.
I've never had to do that. And when I have coached Sarah, it doesn't go well. Definitely not. Let's go to the last one. Where are we at? I don't even know. I can't even see. Yeah, that's about 40 minutes in. Right, and so let's. So this might be a long one for you, but go for it. So let's say we have a 40-year-old female who's been reading about weightlifting. Oh God, I think we've just mentioned this before. Well, we did before the podcast. Reading about weightlifting and obviously the benefits of doing it, but she doesn't know where to start. Like, what advice would you give to her?
I think a lot of it is, what can you implement straight away from a lifestyle change that doesn't impact you too much? Because I think a lot of people come in, they change too much too quickly. They'll then turn around and go, I can't sustain any of it, and they just drop all of it at once. So I think it's simple things like, do you have a daily step count? Can you just add one of those in? If you're somebody that kind of averages 6 or 7k steps a day anyway, can you just call it 7k and see if you can hit that daily? Do you stick to a certain amount of meals a day? I know a lot of people have a real distaste to tracking calories, but can you just stick to similar-ish 3 meals and a snack? Like, that might be something that works for some, but might not for others. Can you commit 2 days a week to training? Because again, like, the scientific data shows it very well. One hard set of an exercise a week can cause muscle growth for that particular muscle. So can you come to the gym at least twice a week? Can you get something in? And I think it's trying to outline to them that these are all the possible benefits that will happen if you do this. Just the most basic one is longevity. You know, we see it all the time with elderly people. I think the likelihood of an elderly person breaking their hip and passing away, it's something like 80% within a year. And you look at it and go, the amount that resistance training, or even just a little bit of conditioning and staying active, the amount that brings that risk down, you look at it and go, why wouldn't you? When you're at that position, what are you doing that is, you know, bettering your life on top of this? Because there can't be anything that is more valuable. And you look at a gym membership, even if you go to a pure gym, £15, £20 a month. It's less than your phone bill. It really doesn't cost an awful lot. You can go in for 30 minutes. It doesn't matter if you do 2 sets on a leg press, 2 sets on a chest press, and 2 sets on a row. Sweet. You've done more than you would be if you were just sat at home. And I think that is it, is it's outlining, these are your absolute basics. Just tick these on a rough day-to-day basis and then just see where it takes you. And if you find it easy to implement it and it becomes a habit, sweet, we can always then potentially add a little bit more in. But it's like trickling it in over time, because I've had people come to me before and they've just off the bat just gone, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And as I said at the start of the podcast, my question was always why? What are you doing that means you can't do any of these things? Like if you're cooking dinner, I'm sure that you can spend 18 seconds putting it in MyFitnessPal. All right, you might not want to because you then see the amount of calories in each meal, but could you then educate yourself a little bit better into how do I have that meal but make it lower calorie? Or, if you live 5 minutes away, and I know people that do this, why are you driving to work? You live 5 minutes away. Why not just walk? Why not park at the end of the car park and walk into the supermarket rather than parking right outside? There's all these little things that they're such minimal effort tasks, but over time they add up to so much. And I think that's where I would start with just steps, food, do a little bit of training. That's it.
So I'll just repeat that. Who's been reading about weightlifting and the benefits of it, but she doesn't know where to start with the weightlifting?
I would honestly say at that point, especially if they're Durham based, just come in, just do a trial. Like there's no harm in trying it. And if you really don't like it, you can always find another form of exercise. But I would say come in, even if you do, let's say, half the session in terms of like 2 sets of an exercise. Yeah. Just give it a go and see if you enjoy it. Like there are so many different facets to weightlifting. And I think people get caught up in what they think weightlifting is. I don't care if it's an Olympic lift. I don't care if it's anything to do with bodybuilding or if it is just a simple bit of, just strength training. Just get in the gym, do something. It doesn't matter if you need to hire a PT for that session. It doesn't matter if you need to go and get a gym induction. Just speak to somebody that has a rough idea of what they're doing and just ask them as many questions as you can. Because the way I look at it is a PT isn't just there to deliver a session. They're a resource. Their knowledge, ask them any question under the sun. And if you're somebody that needs to put your notes app on your phone and type all that stuff down, who's to say that you can't do that? So I would say in that scenario, I would look at that person and just go to the gym. Even if it's with a friend. Yeah. And as I say, you're going in there for half an hour, just go in and see what it's like, see if you enjoy it, try out a few different gyms in the area and find the environment that you like the most. Even if, as I say, it's like, because I know you started in sort of like outdoor boot campy type stuff. If it's a nice summer's day, go and do one of those. Just find something that's enjoyable. Find something that's fun.
Yeah, I think it's always a tough one for people to get in because when they're going to these, they sign up for a commercial gym and then they go in and they do a little bit. But to be fair, most machines now,
they've got pretty accurate descriptions.
Yeah, it tells you what to do.
It tells you what to do. A lot of these ones as well, they come with QR codes. You scan it and it comes up with a video.
Really?
And it literally shows you step by step what to do. So you do look at it and go, not to say there isn't an excuse, but the information is there. And if you still don't understand it, at near enough every gym I've ever been to, there are staff floating about. It might be intimidating to go and ask them, but at the end of the day, everyone starts somewhere. Nobody's rocked up to the gym going, I know everything. Because then you look at it and go, well, how's this your first time ever coming in? So just find somebody, or even if it looks like a relatively experienced gym member, that you can just, catch them for a couple of minutes and pry a bit of information out of them. I guarantee they actually would probably like that as well. Because people like teaching people other things. Yeah. People like to know things and they like to impart that information and wisdom to people. So I just look at it and go, just speak to people. Yeah, I think any gym, if you've seen somebody who was quite experienced in the gym and you just said, look, I'm really new. Yeah. I know it must be very, very hard talking to somebody in a gym like that. Like if I don't know, they might not be able to afford coaching or whatever else. They might only be able to afford that pure gym membership. And they could just say to somebody in there, I mean, if some of the staff might help, might not help, but if there's an experienced person in there,
I bet you they'd love to help.
Yeah.
Because if someone's in shape and all the rest of it, that's a huge compliment to them.
Oh, it is.
And then they want to talk about themselves.
Because in their head, they're like, oh, they've gone to me over the staff. I
Yeah.
must look like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or even like, I mean, you mentioned it towards the start. If you've gone into a gym and you're not comfortable speaking to the staff, but you go, that machine is a leg press, you can just search how to use that leg press on YouTube.
Yeah.
It will be there somewhere. All right, the machine might not translate exactly the same, but you're going to get a rough idea of how to use it. And within 2 or 3 goes of it, you're probably going to get it anyway. You're probably going to start to understand how it works. And don't get me wrong, you know, I think everyone's been to the gym for the first time on their own and they look like a tit when they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
But over time, you get it, and everyone starts somewhere. It's just acknowledging, right, it's not going to be 100% right now, but I'm definitely going to be better in 2 weeks than I was when I first walked in.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to look at it, is don't worry if what you're doing immediately isn't right. What I was doing when I first walked into a gym wasn't right. And that's somebody that's worked in the industry for 8 years. You learn through your mistakes. You learn through watching other people as well. So just, watch people, listen to them and ask questions.
I mean, before I ended, I used to copy people in the gym.
Were you one of these people that like followed their workout as they went?
Like, ridiculous. I didn't know what any muscle groups they were working or anything. And I remember like there was a guy with a plate.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, right.
So he was standing there, and then like my friend as well who trained with me. So then we'd be standing, it was in a line, and like we were just copying this bloke, and he must have been thinking, what the fuck are you...
Oh, I can remember like going into the gym and like holding a plate and doing plate twists.
Or
or like doing a lateral raise, bringing it out front, and then going into a front raise, and you sit there now and you go...
I used to do it up there, and then down, and then...
And you look at it now and you're going, oh my God, it was just... It wasn't a complete waste of time because something was better than nothing. But you do sit there now and you go, oh my God, I feel like I just want to like disappear into the ground or something. It feels really cringy. But you look at it, like at the time, I was 17. I wasn't even watching anything on YouTube. I just walked into a gym and just thought, well, I'll just do that. Whatever that is, I'm just going to do it. Like my first ever gym job, for some reason, I went in with this mentality of, well, I can do half my workout before the shift and I'll do the other half after, and I'll be fresh for both bits. And I look back at it now and I'm like, there probably was some kind of merit in doing like chest before and then shoulders and triceps after. Mm. But I looked at it and went, what a waste of time. Because I was training for an hour before my shift, an hour after my shift. And I'm like, why am I doing this? So yeah, you learn where you come from, and then over time you finalize things and you refine it and you get to the position that you are now. But there's always something more to learn.
I was in an absolute spit and sawdust gym in Horton, like the roughest gym ever.
One of those gyms where you could get tetanus off the machines.
Oh, like it was rotten, like cracked weight plates and stuff like that. And like on all the weights, it had like -1 kilo of, you know what I mean? That's how bad it was. And in there, I was into meat, so I was like really into watching YouTube videos but YouTube had just come out then. But also men's fitness and men's health. And I remember copying some of the things in there, and I remember doing a plank in there with like old school people, and they were like, what the fuck you doing? Yeah. It's a plank, it's for me core. Yeah. And then I did a wood chop lunge.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
The movement combinations.
Yeah. And I was good. Well, I'm getting both muscle groups in at the same time. And
I've done the bicep curl into an overhead press. Like that's another great one. And I've been that kid as well at 17 where like you're sneakily YouTubing how to do an exercise before you do it. Yeah. Like you're sneakily like, you're going, right, well, all right, I think I got it. And then you try it, you look in the mirror and like, that didn't look right. You go back to the video. But like you do just start, you have to start somewhere. And look, even if you make an absolute nightmare of it, like it's gonna get better over and over time. And it's why I say to all new clients, you do that first exercise, you've had 30 seconds of exposure to that.
Yeah.
You do it again on set 2, it looks better. Then set 3 looks better, 4 looks better. Now you do it next week and it's even better than that last set on the first week. And it does just improve over time. And it's the same across every single facet of the fitness industry.
Yep. So you could actually just watch a YouTube video, full body, if we go actually back to the thing. It could be just watch a YouTube, full body. You might not know who you're following. It could be anybody. But hey, do that full body. Do it 2, maybe 3 times a week if you can.
Yeah.
Do it for 8 weeks, see how you feel with it, then type in another new body, full body.
And you know what? If you're really that uncomfortable with going to a gym, just buy some weight plates and some dumbbells at home and some resistance bands.
You can get away with a kettlebell.
Yeah. Like there are so many basic ways into fitness. I think people think you need to go with this gung-ho approach of it's all or nothing. But it really is one of those cases where something is better than nothing. Just get moving. Like, it really doesn't matter if, you know, you turn around and go, well, because as you'll see with a lot of stuff that I look at, optimal doesn't mean the same for everyone.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest part of optimal is practical. If it's not practical and it's not accessible, then it's not optimal. It can't be. So I look at it and go, just do what you can fit in. And then the ball will start rolling from there.
So like a wood chop lunge.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
That is no worries. I've thoroughly enjoyed that.